right, welcome to the relaxing music on this November the 3rd, Election Day 2020. What a day and evening I'm sure it's going to pan out to be tonight. I hope that you have had a wonderful day today. Going to get you some work here. Going to talk about what we need to do, what you need to do, and what's coming up here in the future. So, a couple of things that you need to know real fast. You got a test coming up on Friday, November the 6th. It's going to be all the parts of the cell. So here, or it's going to be parts, the organelles of the cell that we went over in this right here when I sent you this a couple of days ago. And you're going to need to know the parts of it. Now, this looks real busy and it looks kind of intimidating, but let's go over it just real quick. You're also going to have a test coming up on next week, early next week. Not willing to say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. Not really willing to say yet. I'm hoping it's going to be Monday. But it's going to be over chapter 2, the whole thing, vocabulary. It will be another major test. So right now, you've got tests coming up that you need to be getting ready for. The first one being Friday, which is going to cover these cells right here. So let's go over them real quick, okay? This right here is, let me get me a pointer here. All right, let's see here. This right here, why am I not getting a pointer? All right, this right here, what cell type is this? This right here would be the plant cell, okay? And you can always tell a plant cell because it has the boxed in sides, should have green chloroplasts in it. It's got cell walls in it, but we're going to get to that in just a second. So you need to have plant cell. You need to have plant cell here. Number one, this is a vacuole. Vacuole stores and contains food, water, waste products. Number two, all right, number two is right here. This is number two, and here. These are chloroplasts. These are what make food for the cell. They capture light energy and they convert light energy into chemical energy for the cell. Plant cell only. Number three, these things right here, those are mitochondria. They are what burn the energy. They are what actually take the food and compose and make it into energy, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. They are the powerhouses of the cell. Number four looks like an organelle that's got a number 4 in it, but that's actually not what it is. It's actually something that is just floating out in space, but it's not floating in space. It's floating in the cytoplasm. Remember, this is not empty air in here. It's actually a jelly-like fluid that is called cytoplasm. All right, cytoplasm contains nutrients, salts, water, just things. It helps to support the cell, gives the cell basically the organelles things that they need. Okay. Number 5 is this round object that's in the center right here. That's the nucleus, the control center of the cell. Contains the genetic material. And if you look on the inside, you'll see these squiggly lines. Number 6, this genetic material is called chromatin. It has not twisted up and become chromosomes yet. So it's just DNA inside the nucleus. Number 7, you'll see these 2 outer membranes right here. Okay, number 7 on the plant cell is always the innermost is always the cell membrane. All right, and it is what controls what goes in and out of the cell. Number 8 is the cell wall, and once again, that's only in the plant cell. You will find those. They are the cell wall is number 8. It gives support and structure to the cell. It helps to protect the cell as well. So since the cell doesn't have bones, it's got the cell wall, which helps to support and hold it up. All right, so let's scroll down here. And now this right here is the animal cell, okay? So animal cell goes right here. You can always tell because it's got the rounded appearance. You'll notice on the inside there are no chloroplasts. Here are chloroplasts, and chloroplast should be green. Well, there are none in here, so that tells me that this is an animal cell. Also, if you'll notice, there's just the single membrane, all right, whereas here we've got the double membrane. So there's no cell wall that is shown right here. So what are these things that we're looking at here? All right, number one, once again, same thing. If you know the plant cell organelles, you're going to know the animal cell organelles because they are the same except for the cell wall and the chloroplast. There's other changes that are different, but for right now, for what you need to know, you just need to know that the plant cell has chloroplast and cell wall, and that the animal cell does not. So, all right, cytoplasm, once again, number one. Number two, mitochondria. There's several of them in here. Number three, now this one is different. It is the vacuole. All right, notice the number three has a little line that's pointing to this opening, and same thing here, and same thing here, and same thing here. Well, in the plant cell, you got this big old opening because remember, a plant cannot get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to the kitchen to get something to eat. It is stuck where it is. So it's got big, huge vacuoles so that it can store food, so that it can store water, sometimes waste products, but really water and food is what the plant stores in massive numbers in here because it's got to save food for rainy days, literally rainy days when the sun's not shining. At night, when the sun's not out, it still needs food. So, and in the animal cell, they're itty bitty because it doesn't need huge vacuoles like the plant cell. Number four is this outer covering here. You see the 4 fours here, or the 3 fours on the outside. That is the cell membrane. Number 5 here in the center, chromatin, once again, the DNA, the genetic material. Number 6 that you see right there is the nucleus. All right, and that is all for that one. Yes, it has a few less because it is the animal cell. All right. Now, so that test is going to be on Friday of this week. It will be an online test, so will your test next week. Today, we are needing to go over Chapter 2, Section 3. So, I'm going to go to right here. This was what you started working on Friday, and I am going to click on the textbook because what you need to do, and I'm going to be putting a due date on this here very, very soon. I guess you need to have this finished very soon, probably by Monday. We are going to, what I'm going to go over with you today are the definitions. Now, you should have the definitions from last Friday. Last Friday, your assignment was to go over the definitions. Well, I'm going to go over them with you just real quickly. So, to make sure that you've got correct answers for what's going to be on the test. So, let me click right here. Let's scroll down. All right, this section 4. Let's go here. All right, section 3. All right, so let's get to the definitions here. And I need this right here so that I can know which ones we got to go over. All right, and I'm sorry I'm drinking. Y'all know, after teaching all day, I've got to have something to drink. I've got a cold drink right there. No tea because I'm at school. So I've got a cold drink right here to keep my voice from possibly cracking on y'all. All right, let's get started here. All right, the first word that we need to know is semi-permeable. All right, now right here is where the word is, and the definition is here. This means It allows only a certain substances to enter and leave the cell. Semi-permeable means that the cell, all right, so if we got a cell right here, that's the cell membrane right there. All right, it will allow certain things to come in and out. So if I just start drawing little dots all over the place, semi-permeable means that some things it will allow to come in, other things it will not allow them to come in. All right, good stuff, oxygens and waters and nutrients and things like that. Yeah, come on in. But certain things they want to keep out, bacterias and viruses and toxins and things like that. It will close its membrane to prevent stuff like that from coming in. Oops. All right. Let's move on now. Let's see, semi-permeable, and now the next word is passive transport, which is right here, almost the same color as the highlight. Passive transport is the movement of substances through a cell membrane without using the cell's energy. So what passive transport is when something is allowed to come into the cell, but the cell does not have to spend any energy whatsoever to bring the stuff in. Now, I'm not going to say hit pause. You should know if you need to pause, go ahead and hit pause when you need, if there's some of these that you don't have right or if you've made a mistake. But I'm just going to assume right now that you got them all anyway. All right. So passive transport is the movement of substances through a cell membrane without using the cell's energy. All right. Next, the next word is diffusion, and it is down here. All right. What is diffusion? All right. Diffusion is the movement of substances from an area of high concentration to an area of lower concentration. So if I draw a line right here, and if I've got a bunch of something or another over here, all right, I'm just drawing a bunch of green dots in here, okay? Now, if these things, whatever these green dots may be, if they start making their way from here, where they are right here, if they start making their way over here to this side, if they start making their way over, that is diffusion, because this right here is high concentration and this over here is low concentration, and they're going to keep making their way down here, all right, until something happens. And what happens is a word that is called equilibrium. Now, equilibrium is not one of your definitions, but it is right here. And what equilibrium means is when you get about the same number. So if I start quickly making little green dots, when the numbers start to even out, that is when it starts getting even. That's when it will stop moving over, because no longer do I have a high area here and no longer do I have a low area here. It's just about evened out. And so they stop moving around as much. So that's what equilibrium is. All right. Next word is osmosis. All right. Osmosis is right here. Let's do osmosis. Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules only through a membrane. So what's going on in these pictures that I drew right here occurs with everything except for water. When you start getting water moving through a semi-permeable membrane, that is called osmosis then. And here are examples right here. This right here is dye in water. And what happens is this right here is a good example of diffusion. High right here, low. The red would be make this side high. There's a high concentration of red dye. There's none over here. And so as it starts moving over, that right there is it's equaled out. So good example of diffusion. Osmosis, though, is when water makes its way into a membrane. So same thing that you see here, same thing that you see here, except just water moving in to a cellular membrane. All right. What is facilitated diffusion? All right. The definition for facilitated diffusion, let's get another color here. All right, is right here. Facilitated diffusion. But the definition is right here. When molecules pass through a cell membrane, special proteins transport proteins. All right. And I've kind of messed that up. So let me erase that right there so that we can see that a little bit better. All right. Let's write that again. All right. Facilitated diffusion. Let me try to make a little bit easier mess here. When molecules pass through a cell membrane using special proteins called transport proteins. So let me underline that. And let me underline that. And transport proteins. These right here are the types of proteins that we're talking about. These are in the cell membrane that you see right here. And what they do is they're able to bring things in or push things out. All right. So when molecules pass through a cell membrane, here is the cell membrane right here, using these special proteins that you see right here, that is called facilitated diffusion. So in other words, these things are doing the work for the cell. All right. The next word is active transport. All right. Here is active transport right here. Let me get a purple color here. Active transport is the movement of substances through a cell membrane only by using the cell's energy. Now, before we said passive transport is when the cell does not have to use energy to get things. Active transport is when the cell actually has to do work and use energy to bring things in and out. Okay. Now, there's several examples that are shown here. And one of them is endocytosis here. So let's pick out a blue here. Endocytosis, all right, is the process during which a cell takes in a substance by surrounding it with the cell membrane. Here is an example of it. Who knows what this thing is right here? It's something that the cell wants. So what it's doing is it's manipulating its cell membrane around it, and then it completely encloses it, and now it's in the cell, and it's going to do whatever it is it wants to do with it. Okay, use it for energy, use it as a nutrient, whatever. But it wanted it. Okay. Now, next is a word that is called, and let me erase this real quick. All right, exocytosis. All right, so for exocytosis, it's right here. Exocytosis is the process during which a cell's vesicles release their contents outside the cell. This right here in here is waste product. Okay, so it moves this here and it releases the particles outside the cell. That is exocytosis. Now, a good example of that, or something that you should remember, whenever you hear something that is called endo, as in endocytosis, endo usually means to pull in or to bring in. Okay, exo means to push away, to get rid of, to send out. next year when y'all are in 8th grade, y'all are going to study something that is called endothermic and exothermic. Endothermic means to pull heat in. Exothermic means to send heat out. For example, ice cream pulls heat in. That's why it melts. So it is endothermic. When you're holding, if you put ice cream in your hand, it's going to pull the heat from your hand into the ice cream and it's going to start melting. Okay. Ice cream and ice and things like that are endothermic. They pull in heat. Okay. Exothermic means to push out heat. So when you're standing by a fire and you feel the heat coming off of it, that's exothermic. When somebody pulls into the driveway and you put your hand over the hood and you feel the heat coming off the engine, exothermic. Okay. Well, these guys are the same thing. A cell it's going through endocytosis when it pulls items into the cell. Okay. So as it goes in, that is endo. Exo means it is sending it out. Exo, exiting. Okay. Let's see. The next word that we need to get is surface area. Now, these are kind of hidden. So for those of you that said they're not there, they are there. You just kind of had to find them a little bit. Let's read a little bit, shall we? Recall that the movement of nutrients, waste material, and other substances into and out of the cell is important for survival. For this movement to happen, the area of the cell membrane must be large compared to its volume. The area of the cell membrane is the cell's surface area. On your review sheet, number 25 is surface area. All right, so the definition for surface area is surface area right here. The area of the cell membrane is the cell's area. In other words, if this is a cell and if this is a cell, all right, this is A and this is B. Between the two, which one has a bigger surface area? Duh, B does, because it has so much more to it. A has a small surface area. Okay, so what is volume then? All right, volume is quite simple. Volume is the amount of space inside the cell. So which one of these two, A or B, has more volume? Duh, B does. It's got more volume on the inside. And people, especially 7th graders, confuse volume because you assume volume, when you hear volume, is how loud something is. That is volume, but that's not the type of volume that we're talking about here. Here we're talking about how much can be held in a certain area. For example, this classroom, the air in this classroom. Which one has more volume of air? My classroom or the cafeteria? The cafeteria. Much bigger, holds much more air. That is correct. Which has more volume? The auditorium of air. The auditorium or the gymnasium? Well, believe it or not, it's the auditorium. The auditorium is a much bigger room. When you include the seating area, the stage area, the tall ceiling, which is taller than the gym, it has more volume of air in it. So that is the answer to number 26. Volume is the amount of space inside the cell. All right. Well, that brings us an end to today's lesson and today's definitions. All right. So what you need to do today is I'm going to click over here. You need to do your warm-up. You need to watch the video, which you're doing now. Follow the directions. Make sure you go through there and write those definitions if you've got a mistake in there. Test on Friday on the cell organelles, and most likely early next week, a Chapter 2 test vocabulary Okay. All right. Hope you have a good day. If you need anything, give me an email. Have a great one. We'll talk to y'all later on.